Hi, and welcome to Dark Window. I'm your host, Jim Mann. Here on this program, I will be talking with many of the leading investigators, researchers, and authors on the topics of UFOs, UAPs, alien abductions, extraterrestrials, and a host of many other fascinating and related topics. So please join me and my guest for the next hour as we reach out. This is Dark Window on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. This is part 2 of my interview with Debz Shakti, and let's get started.
I was able to perceive things from a more global perspective. I felt nothing intimidating from any of these experiences. So I didn't have fear. For me, fear is a human response to danger, and I never felt in any danger.
Debz Shakti is a professional quantum hypnotherapist, an open channel offering other professional PSI services, including energy alchemy, ET, contact, and paranormal experience counseling. She is the associate producer of the new top-rated film Alien Abduction Answers. Her work as the quantum hypnotherapist assisting John Yost, the filmmaker, as well as with all the experiencers in the film, is highly featured. She has many decades of professional service working with such people and many others, seeking self-discovery and clarity about the nature of consciousness. She works with all types of energy healing modalities and is a lifelong yogi and yoga, breathwork, meditation, mantra teacher. She also spent much of her life as a competitive sports athlete and is a former national champion martial artist, published author, and much more. Debz loves everyone, our planet, and everything that makes up life. Debz Shakti is... Debz, welcome back. Thank you for joining me again.
Oh, thanks so much, Jim and Patricia, for having me. Technology, gotta love it, right?
Yeah. So, Debz, our last conversation was extremely interesting on so many
Loved
points.
it.
Yeah. And we talk in your introduction there, you talk a little bit about some terms that maybe I haven't quite understood. I guess one of the things I'm interested in is energy alchemy. I mean, I know what alchemy is, but energy alchemy. Mm-hmm. Can you go into that a little bit and tell me what that is?
Sure, Jim. Well, I tried to find an umbrella term I could use to describe all of the different energy healing and energy manipulation modalities that I know. I mean, I came into this life able to perceive and utilize energy in ways that a lot of people, I guess, don't. I didn't know that at the time when I was a kid, but, I've always been an energy worker. And then, as I started growing up and as noticing that people didn't know some of the stuff I was doing, I started seeking education to explain it. Quantum physics being the science that helps me to explain almost everything. But I got into studying different types of energy healing work, like Reiki, like Hands of Light, like Core Star, like Quantum Touch, and on and on and on. And getting into shamanistic practices. And, even when I was a kid, I was raised in a religious family and in a lot of religions, they have the laying on of hands to help people heal, or to, help them get calm or whatever. So I always was able to do that. I just didn't know what the terms, how to explain it to other people. So a lot of those different courses helped me understand what was going on. And so I use all of it. And depending on what's going on with a person, I might use a little of this, a little of that. It's kind of like making a soup. You put this spice in and then this spice and this vegetable as is needed. So energy alchemy is just a term I came up with to say I'm an energy worker and I'm able to perceive and utilize energy in many different ways, hopefully to help people feel better and grow and feel better about themselves as well.
So you also, well, thank you for that. First off, I think I fully understand that. You also mentioned that you do ET contact and paranormal experience counseling.
Yes.
Now, when you, and we'll get into the ET contact counseling in a minute, but the paranormal experience counseling, what sort of counseling do you do for those that are involved with paranormal? Are they experienced paranormal?
Yeah. I mean, well, as you know, that's a huge, vast field that could incorporate any sort of paranormal activity, from, seeing a ghost to having what a person might think is a demon in their house to seeing Bigfoot, right? Or orbs or, anything. And so what I do, again, it's very custom fitted. It's almost like, in our former conversation, we were talking about quantum consciousness and how everything is connected and how you can access any part of the field, the quantum field, to get the information you need and proceed with what you need to do when you need to do it. I love that. We are unlimited and infinite in our capability of doing that, but most of us don't know the tools to be able to do it. So when, for instance, I have a person call me up and say, I think my house is haunted and we're experiencing a lot of stress because this and this and this is happening. I'll, if I'm able to, if it's someplace I can get to, I'll go visit. Otherwise, I'll have them take me like on a FaceTime tour or something of their house, and I'll pick up energetically what's happening there. And basically, it's just, resonant energy trying to, is being attracted to other things that are kind of similar. This is really hard to say, but, for instance, if a person thinks their house is haunted by a ghost and they're afraid, I'll connect with that energy because it's just energy. We're all just energy. I'll connect with that energy by, going into my own practices and getting into a certain brainwave and energetic state, vibrational state. And then I'll just ask, why are you here? What do you want? What is the message? And there's always a message, always. And what we find is always what's happening with this entity or, energy being or whatever has something that is similar or relational or relative, I should say, to something that's going on with the person who's living there or the people who are living there. So basically, it's like a messenger, even though it may be acting all crazy, So my job is to find out what the message is. And when we can find out what the message is, what the similarity is between the physical human beings and the paranormal form of consciousness, then it all makes sense and both sides are healed. Because the one on the other side is also experiencing some sort of stress or trauma as well, right? Whether it's loneliness or feeling lost or having something unfinished that needs to be done. So that's where that comes in, and I can counsel those people. Basically, I'm the bridge between those two things.
And this is obviously a part of the quantum consciousness that you talk about, where you're able to tap into these energies because of this quantum consciousness, which we're going to talk a bit more about.
Right.
Excuse me. I noticed that, and I'm a little bit familiar with these CE5 contact groups. I had one time worked with a CE5 contact group.
Awesome.
Can you explain a little bit about what CE5 contact groups and these conscious groups are about?
Right. Well, CE5 is a term that was coined by Dr. Stephen Greer. It's kind of added on to a kind of a scale of types of ET contact that I believe, don't quote me on this, but I think it was J. Allen Hynek who made that first scale, CE, close encounters of the first kind, second kind, third kind, fourth kind. CE5 is human initiated contact. So it literally is a human, or even better, a group of humans coming together, doing certain quantum consciousness practices, although that's not what he calls it, to bring yourselves in a relative coherent vibrational state, the group. So we do some breath work, we do, and different groups do different things now. It has evolved. But, Greer was a yogi and a transcendental meditator. And so he took those forms of quantum consciousness practices and brought them into this modality. Basically, you do whatever it takes to raise the group's vibrational state, and you become very connected energetically. Usually sit in a circle. If it's good weather, you go outside under the stars and you do these practices. And then you go into deep meditation and go into a deep theta brainwave state. And when you do that, then you can intentionally send. Remember, we were talking about sending and receiving transmissions through your little cosmic satellite dish, your pineal gland in your brain. You send the invitation out telepathically and invite benevolent beings from other star systems or planets or dimensions to come and interact with you. And it works.
Well, yes. And have you had contact when you've been out doing this with these groups? Have you had what you...
Every time.
Every time. Yes.
Every time. Yeah.
And I will say that I have done some of this work, and yes, we have had some definite results, which we could go into. But I'm trying to stay with this theme of this quantum theme. Mm-hmm. The quantum channeling.
Yes. Yeah.
I noticed that that's something that you're involved with, quantum channeling.
Right.
And again, we're talking about the quantum physical or non-physical. Mm-hmm. And then I think we know what channeling is when you're bringing
forth information, basically.
Exactly. So tell us a little bit about quantum channeling.
Well, quantum channeling is it's just another umbrella term I use because, people like to say, well, they're a trance channel, or they're an open channel, or they're a sleeping prophet like Edgar Cayce. Really, all channeling is, and everyone can do it, everybody does do it, all quantum channeling is getting yourself, again, in that brainwave state where you're able to send and receive information. But when you tune into a certain frequency of a being, for instance, of a different form, a different life form than yourself, whether that's an ET or someone's grandmother or Napoleon Bonaparte or whatever, everything vibrates at its own personal energy signature, its own frequency. And you can tune yourself to that with intention once you get into that higher vibrational state. And then you just, it's really hard for me to explain, but basically my consciousness just kind of steps out of the way, and whoever wants to come through in that frequency takes over my vocal cords, my body, and speaks and gives information, answers questions, might even give a history lesson, might tell a story. Often in the global live events like the one I'm going to do Saturday, this Saturday on June 3rd, my body will still be working the logistics of the Zoom and the chat and all that. But I literally, now some people do remember what they're in our present. I'm not present. I just kind of go on vacation and they take over. But my body still does what it needs to do. They kind of manipulate the body. But I am not answering the questions or speaking from my own self at all. In fact, most of the time I'm shocked at what comes out, because a lot of the information that comes out, I have no knowledge of me. So that's what quantum channeling is.
So
tapping into the field.
So with all of this, quantum consciousness, quantum hypnosis, quantum channeling, is this all a part of the energy healing modalities that you talk about?
Yeah, it's all connected. It's just different forms of the same thing. It's all just tapping into the great all it is, the cosmic mind.
Tell me a little bit about your lifelong experience as a yogi and a yoga and doing meditations and a mantra teacher.
Yeah. Well, I started when I was 13. I grew up in the hippie years, and I was in love with the Beatles, and especially George Harrison. And, as you know, the Beatles got involved in yoga and meditation, especially transcendental meditation, and they had a guru. And so I knew a little bit about that, and I always wanted to be involved. But, back then you had to go to a library to get a book and hope that you could find out, more about these subjects that you would like to learn about. But at the time when I was that age and very interested in it, my dad worked for the federal government. First he was in the military, then the federal government, and we moved a lot. So when I was 13, we lived in a tiny little town in Arkansas across the river from Memphis, Tennessee. And it was very, shall we say, provincial. It wasn't very progressive. There was nothing in the library for me there. But, as life would have it, I won't go into the story, but a friend of mine's brother was going to Memphis to go see a yogi, to see a yoga master. And he asked if we wanted to ride along. And we said, sure. And that's how I met this first. I thought he was ancient little old guy living in a one-room studio apartment with nothing. And he was my first teacher. He was my first taste of yoga, which for over a year was nothing but sitting in lotus position, doing breath work and meditating. So that was kind of my introduction. But after that, we moved and I started researching. And by that time, there were, teachers, and there then began studios popping up and certification programs and stuff. So I went into it full-fledged and really immersed myself in yoga, which most people in the United States especially think yoga is just about doing postures and exercise and stretching and all that. That's just one piece of kind of they call it 8 limbs of yoga that are a comprehensive technology basically to help you get really comfortable in your body and your mind and your spirit so that you can go into deep meditation and access the quantum field.
So I guess my next question is, you grew up in a very sort of religious, conservative household as a child. Mm-hmm. And how did you become the person you are today, Debz?
Causing a lot of discomfort to many people I loved as compassionately as I possibly could, because I actually am a pretty shy person and loved my parents, loved my family. Even though I did grow up in the age of question authority, I was a good kid and liked to make good grades and and honor what my parents wanted me to do. But, there started to become a line drawn in the sand of what I clearly could not bring myself to believe in and do anymore, and what was calling to me. So it did cause some rifts, but all teenagers go through that, and eventually my folks really they started to evolve too. And before, they're both gone now, but before each of them passed, we were like so close and so on the same page about what happens, for instance, after you leave the body. Totally wasn't what they were taught in Catholic school. No offense to the Catholics, but there's just way more to it than what we thought. And so that was very encouraging to me. And I talk to my parents all the time now. I have a better relationship with them now than I did when they were in the body. So.
Well, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, you mentioned, and you said affectionately, she calls her, let me just quote your bio here. It says that you were born with what you affectionately call your superpowers switched on.
Yeah.
So you felt this stuff right from the beginning. A lot of people have experiences. They have experiences as children.
Yeah.
I had an experience as a child.
Mm-hmm.
Had you had any sort of experiences, say, ET or any of that, any abduction experiences or ET experiences as a child?
Yeah. I assume from day one, but my earliest one that I vividly remember, I was probably 2.5, 3 years old. And I tell the story so much, I feel like it's gotten old, but seriously, I was in bed, and I had a little glass. One of my walls next to my bed was glass. It was a big window. The whole wall was a window. And my favorite tree was outside. And I was still awake, but I heard a tapping on my window. And I looked out as a little child, and I saw what I called in my head space monkeys in the tree. And they were saying, "Come out and play with us. Come out and play with us." And like I said, I was a good kid. So I said, "Oh, I have to ask my mommy." So I got out of bed, ran into my mom and dad's room, woke my mom up, who by that time I think was pregnant with her third child and was very tired. And she's like, "Oh, no, honey, you're having a dream." Got up, put me to bed, looked through the window, didn't see anything, of course. And then said, "You're having a dream, go to sleep, night, night." And, and then as soon as she left the room, tap, tap, tap. And they were really insistent. They're like, "Come out and play with us." And this happened 3 or 4 times. And every time I went to wake my mom up to ask, she got more and more angry and upset. And finally, after the last time, she put me in bed and very, very firmly said, "I don't ever want to hear about those space monkeys again, ever. Now go to sleep or you're going to get a spanking." And I was terrified of my mother giving me a spanking. So I did. Now, the interesting thing about this is that I was 2.5 or 3 years old. I didn't know anything about space, and I doubt that I knew anything about monkeys. But that was the name that I gave them. Years and years and years later, when I was thinking about it, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, those were little grays. They were little grays, gray aliens." But that was my very first one that I can clearly remember. And so I was just a baby.
Let's go back to the Alien Abduction Answers movie.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Okay, now in that movie, there is a number of experiencers along with John Yost.
Yes.
And for those that haven't seen the movie, these are very credible sounding people. Mm. Are you familiar with all of those experiences? Are those people that that you have worked with? Or
yeah, they're all my clients. Everybody in that movie are my clients.
Are your clients?
And some of them are they're probably all of them dear friends now. Other than Whitley Strieber, who is our expert. He wasn't my client, but I like to call him my friend.
When did you first meet Whitley?
I met Whitley when John met Whitley. John had asked, there came a time where we realized we have all of these great experiences, but they're very intense, and they're very real, because we had like real people,
Mm-hmm.
housewives and accountants and hairdressers and teachers and so forth. Very intense to watch these people tell their stories. But we wanted someone who could give a kind of a counterpoint or give an explanation, kind of tie everything together. And John he just wanted Whitley so badly. And he's like, please tell me you know him. I said, I'm sorry, I don't. But then I was reminded in meditation that night, you know a guy who knows the guy. And so I called my friend and I told him what we were doing. And I said, is there any way we can get these two people together? This would really just make the film. And the person said, sure, let me give it a try. And he did. And it took a while because he's a tough cookie. He doesn't suffer fools, and he's a very private person, and he's a very busy person, prolific. He just prolific worker still after all these years. But when he finally got to know John and got to know me, over Zoom and so forth through our good friend who he trusted, we went out to California, and it was magic being with him. It was fantastic.
In the movie, it starts off with Whitley making comments. He says a very profound thing that has always stuck with me, where he says it's not communication, it's communion.
Yes.
What does that mean to you, Debz?
It means everything to me. It is the most profound statement a person could make, because it's not communication. We literally are intimately connected with each other, everyone, everywhere, every when. And when you are having an encounter with these beings, it's not just verbal, for instance, or sign language, or somebody handing you a letter. You're literally merged with these people in consciousness and in heart. It's the only way I can explain it. You're merged with them. It is communion.
So, of all those experiences during that movie, what stands out besides John? Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have you choose one above another, because I'm sure that every one of those people had a unbelievable.
Outstanding. Experience. Yeah.
Do you remember anything in particular, aside from John, that maybe really stands out for you? Any one of those experiences?
Of the experiencers, you mean?
Yes, of the experiencers.
Oh, gosh, it's really hard to pick one. They're all so incredible. I have to say, though, Kimberly Porth, she has long blonde hair in the movie. When she's talking off camera, she's got a fuzzy coat on.
Yes, okay.
She's also had contact. All of these people have had contact since early childhood, by the way. What I found out in my work is it's not just one time usually. It's your whole life, and it's usually involves your whole family. So, but Kim had some very profound ones, even as a young person. She's also a yogi, by the way, an extremely masterful teacher. And she just, I'm sure she was frightened when she was a kid by some of this stuff. And she had a lot of stuff going on in her personal life, too, that probably made it worse. But she took all of that and just again, looked at it like data. She's just looking at it without judging it. And I think it made her the person she is today, because she is that person. She does not judge anyone. She just looks at everything with a sense of wonder and inquisitiveness and with compassion and love. And I think all of her interactions with all of these beings and these crazy situations really helped to mold her. The stories that she told are just amazing, you know. Even in adulthood, some of her adult stories are incredible. She also is a major player in the CE5 community, by the way.
You have done hundreds of, or should say, let me back up. You have helped hundreds of people over the course of your life.
I hope so.
You've touched so many lives. When you find these people, when they first come into your life, would you say that they are confused, frustrated, or damaged?
Yes, and yes, some of them. And some of them are just curious.
Just curious.
But I get probably at least a good half of the ones, you know, and I work with other people who aren't, you know, having ET contact and stuff. But if you just keep it to that, about half of them have had serious trauma, and it's affected their lives, you know, and held them back in certain ways. And they just want to feel better, and they just want to understand, and all of them have this sense of there's something more. I call it the call to action, because I think every person who has an encounter with ET or with paranormal, whatever, with quantum consciousness, gets a call to action. And it's about their purpose. Everybody comes in here with a purpose, but not everybody knows what it is. But when you start to remember things, along with all of the stuff that comes, all of the crazy experiences or scary stuff or beautiful stuff, underlying that is what's pushing them to find out more and come to me, is that call to action. But they don't know it yet. But when we go into those sessions, it always comes out. Always. So there's a purpose to this. It's not some random bunch of people travel around space and doing experimentation. I don't think. There's a purpose to this.
Do the majority of the people that come to you, are they, do they have a life of where they feel ridiculed, or they feel that they've been made fun of, so they just keep it to themselves? John Yost kept it to himself for 50 years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I even kept it to myself for a long time. You know, I was told not to talk about it. And then once I went to school, of course, you don't talk about that either. But most people have, you know, they're either embarrassed, ashamed, feel silly. They're afraid they're going to lose their job, their marriage, their family. They're going to be ostracized. You know, our whole culture is built around keeping a lid on this whole subject.
Exactly. Yes.
And that's how they do it, is by making people afraid to say something. Because if everybody realizes that they're having these experiences, and, you know, even grandma had these experiences, but she never talked about them to you, and you thought she was going to judge you if you ever said anything, how uplifting, how enlightening is that if everybody, or most people you know, are having these experiences and they talk about them openly? You know?
Exactly. That's why if you go to the UFO conferences and the symposiums, there's usually a session for experiencers where they will. Have you ever been in those groups?
I've led many of those groups.
I was just going to say, have you led those groups?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And I still do. I love that. I'm actually getting ready to start probably a monthly kind of a Zoom group for people to just come in and talk.
Okay.
Yeah, why not? I mean, how fun is that?
So now you've got a program coming up.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
You talk about the thing on Saturday?
Yes, tell me about that.
Yeah. So in my quantum channeling, one of the main group, it's a group of beings that I channel. It's kind of known as a group entity. They're called the Star Teachers. By the way, I asked them for a name because they said they'd evolved past the egoic need for a label. So they didn't have a name when I first started working with them. But they literally say they are us on a higher frequency or a different timeline. If you want to think linearly, they are us in the future. And they call us their future ancestors.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So we are their ancestors. They are us in the future, if you want to look at it that way. And the star teachers are no longer human. They're no longer earthlings. They have evolved. They left Earth, eventually went out, conquered space, interdimensional, time travel, all this stuff. So they're really high level beings, super compassionate, beautiful, loving beings, super wise. And so every so often, I do free events where I get on Zoom and YouTube Live and, some of the other platforms. And I take people through a little bit of the quantum consciousness practice so that they can tap into that great feeling state, get into a high vibrational vibe state. And as a group, just like we do with CE5, we get into a heart coherency. Like everybody you feel really good and loving with everyone, participating. And then we just relax, meditate, and then the star teachers come through, or I just call them the teachers now because they're not just from the stars, but they come through and they usually give kind of a global message usually it's about current events or something that the world is a world conversation. They give some insight about that. And then they take the group through a quantum consciousness kind of journey where there is healing, if there's healing needed. There is kind of energetic upgrades, sometimes DNA upgrades, or the little switches of the superpowers that are turned off in people's DNA. They get switched on and they get energy. It's a beautiful experience. Everybody really, really loves that. And then when we come out of that, they open the floor to questions from the participants. And so it's literally live. Anybody can ask any question about anything and they'll answer. So that's what this is about. And it's like everybody's favorite thing that I do.
So in your experience, do you find a particular age group, or are you seeing all ages across?
All ages. And I don't know if that's because I'm really active on all the different social media platforms. So I don't try to cater to one demographic at all. So you'll see, young kids, you'll see 20 somethings, you'll see, I have consistently have a 92-year-old man who attends, who just really asks some of the best questions. And and from all walks of life, all over the world, because it's global. I try to hold it, at a time when it's not so bad for some of the people on the other side of the earth or the other hemisphere. So
that's a great idea. Shift gears here a little bit. And this is probably right in there with your quantum research, remote viewing.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's part and parcel of this. We all have this ability, and, the Russian and the United States government military, figured out, everybody has this capability. It's easy to train somebody. It's not some spiritual woo-woo thing. It's literally getting into that theta brainwave frequency, which is, when you're sitting here talking to me and we're having a conversation and you're trying to fiddle with all of your logistical things on the recording device here, you're in the beta state. That's the waking active state. When you're in light meditation or you're reading a good book or something, your brain waves are kind of slowing down a little bit more. You're a little bit more relaxed and focused. That's alpha state. Then when you're super relaxed, where you kind of lose sense of time, the awareness of your body and the awareness of the outside environment. In other words, you're very relaxed and very focused. You're in the theta brainwave state. And that's kind of the gold standard for being led into deep meditation, for going into quantum hypnosis. And it's also the gold standard for remote viewing, because when you're, or for doing out of body travel, all of that, because you literally are not connected consciously to your body. You're in the field. And, so it's kind of like a wild card state. So remote viewing is very, very easy to teach somebody to do. All they have to do is get in that brainwave state. And I teach it all the time. It's I've taught it both ways, because I learned the what do I want to say, the third dimensional world, the how put off way, if you will, the Russell Targ way. They were my teachers in that method. But then I also just teach people how to do it by getting into that lower, slower, more focused brainwave state.
You were involved in athletics.
Mm-hmm. My whole life. Still am.
Your entire life. So in order to maintain an athletic prowess, you have to practice.
Yes.
But also, in order to maintain this quantum consciousness, you have to practice.
Yes, it's all the same thing.
So what is it? Can you tell people that want to sit down and start learning how to do some of these things, trying to tap into that? If you're at home, let's say that you've got all day long and you've got nothing to do, but what would you do if you were just starting out, trying to understand how can I tap in to these gifts or these abilities that I have? Where would I start? What would I want to do?
Well, for me, I start with the breath. I really do. If you can consciously connect with your breath and control your breath, then your body starts to go into a different frame of architecture, if you will. It starts to support you going deeper within to your consciousness, because the two they're interconnected, So I would start with some simple breath work, with maybe, for people who are just starting out, there are billions of guided meditations and breath work videos, like on YouTube, on TikTok, and all that. I have a bazillion on my website and on my YouTube channel too, and they're free for anybody to use. But I would start with that. But, if you really want to just, dive in with both feet, I'd say if you don't have some sort of a spiritual or metaphysical practice, you might want to look into yoga or Tai Chi or, drumming or chanting or ecstatic dance, something like that. Something that gives you focus, especially for people who have a hard time being overstimulated and whose bodies kind of get in the way. Because most of the time I have people say, well, I can't meditate because my body won't sit still for more than a minute at a time. And I'm like, so sit still for a minute. And then tomorrow sit still for a minute and 10 seconds. And just consciously allow yourself to relax. So a lot of these practices are just to help the body get into a place where it can not be intrusive. And then once the body relaxes, the mind starts to relax and slide out of the way. And that's when you can really get into those deep states and start to connect with some of this stuff.
I know I've always heard, and I used to do some meditation. Okay. Life has kind of gotten in the way.
Of course. Does for everybody.
The biggest thing is to clear your mind, release yourself of the stress. Mm-hmm. Does the breathing help that?
The breathing does help that. But, people get attached to, just like, most people, when they talk to me and tell me that they can't be hypnotized, their idea of hypnosis is some guy standing in front of them with a swinging watch. and
Yes.
saying you're getting very sleepy. They have no idea, you know. So um, most people, when you talk to when they talk to me about meditation and how they feel like they're a failure at meditation, they say it's because I just can't clear my mind. Well, you can't clear your mind. Here, that's the big secret. You can't clear your
You
mind.
can't. Yes.
What you can do is not care about what's going on in the mind.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good point.
And that's what some of these practices help you do. Is
Um,
just kind of get out of your mind's way.
music?
Music, fantastic. Music is fantastic. My husband is a guitar player. He will be the first to tell you he can't sit still and meditate. Also, he has tinnitus, you know, and so when you sit still and quiet, all you hear is that zzz, it
Hmm.
drives him crazy. But I tell you what, he gets in a deep meditative state when he's in his room practicing. He can be in there, and here's how you know when you're in a deep meditative state. You lose sense of time, you lose sense of your body, and you lose sense of the environment around you. You might forget you missed dinner, right? Because you're
Hmm.
so focused on what you're doing. And I don't care what it is. So maybe you're outside gardening, or maybe you're composing a piece of music, or maybe you're painting your bedroom. When you get into that flow state, you're in meditation.
So I have always heard that certain frequencies will move us certain directions.
Mhm.
Um, is there a particular frequency or is particular?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm all about sound technology. I think it's very important. I think that's why mantra chanting and all of that, it works so well for this. It's just part of that technology. There are some things that, for instance, Robert Monroe Institute,
Right.
really did a lot of research on that works. Um, Binaural beats, um, Icos, Icronsonic, I can't say it, beats. You can look at the Monroe Institute recordings. They're so good because what they do is they put one frequency in one ear and one frequency in the other ear underneath the music or the words. And you're not really aware of it, but it starts to synchronize the two hemispheres of the brain and get you relaxed. And then you go into the state. The other thing that I love to work with is something called the solfeggio frequencies. And that is a whole other subject where originally our music was composed, performed, and enjoyed in a tiny little bit of different frequency in the scales than what we hear right now in most music. The solfeggio frequencies are more attuned to the Schumann resonance frequency of the earth, the heartbeat of the earth. Our earth puts out a frequency of I think it's like 7.2 hertz. And that frequency is very healing and balancing for all life on earth. Well, when we started to compose and make music, organically, we created scales and notes and compositions that were fluid with that. And then, about the time that the Nicene Congress or whatever got together back when Constantine started changing things that were in the Christian Bible and all that,
Hmm.
he also changed the he shifted the scale to 440 hertz, 440 hertz instead of 432 hertz.
432. Yes, I heard that.
432 is the gold standard, and if you listen to a piece of music to the 440 scale and then you listen to it to the 432, you feel completely different. So I use solfeggio tones in music in my practice. I play singing bowls, I have tuning forks, I have all kinds of things tuned to 432.
I do know that, and we're out of time here. Um, as a guitarist myself and a musician, tuning your guitar down a step, down to 432 instead of that 440.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people find that they can sing.
Yeah.
They can
Who couldn't? Yeah, who couldn't before?
Where they couldn't before.
Because it's more organic.
It is, absolutely. I will absolutely agree with you on that. And
it's part of our DNA.
I have a gentleman that I'm going to have on my show here, if I can connect with him, and he's all about frequency healing.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's a whole nother fascinating topic, as the healing properties of frequency.
Yeah. That's all of this. That's what energy alchemy is. It's manipulating the frequencies.
Well, Deb, it's been fascinating on part 2, just as much as part 1. Okay.
I've had a blast.
Yes. Hey, Patricia, can we put those websites back up? And these are all the places where you can go and tap in with Debz. Get in there and find out what she's doing. And again, you're going to have this thing. Is it this Saturday?
Yeah, it's Saturday, June 3rd at 4:30 p.m. Central Time. If you go on my website, you'll get all the deets. And know that I always record those. So if you can't attend live, it's just as powerful in the recording. And the energy never changes. In fact, it amplifies. The more people who participate, even in the future, listening to a recording, the more the energy is amplified and the more powerful it is.
Okay, well, thank you. You know, Debz, you're just fascinating on many different levels. And
So
I really
I
appreciate having you on the show.
Thank you.
So everyone, on behalf of Debz, myself, and Patricia, thank you for joining us here on Dark Window, and we'll see you another time. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
And Lakesh, bye.